Indie games represent most of the gaming industry's releases, and yet the average indie game only makes about $30,000. A single developer producing a single game every year can expect to make minimum wage if they're lucky. When you consider the recent Steam sale, it's no wonder. There are so many indie titles that it's basically impossible for any single game to achieve an overwhelming level of success. These games are drowning amongst other games, and there's no real test to determine what is, or is not, good in that ocean of releases. An excellent title will languish and fail exactly the same way as a bad title. This is why when an indie game does manage to draw attention, suddenly it's seeing more players than ever before, achieving levels of success previously unheard of. It's not that we don't want to play good games, and it's not that there's no gamers interested in the type of games being released. It's just so hard to curate, to find a title that's worthwhile. This is obviously because of Steam, right? Steam allows so many games and it's so easy to publish and sell, right? Well, no. It's actually more likely the idea of the Steam sale was slightly stolen. Instead, there's one thing that has created the industry today more than anything else. In fact, it continues to drive the industry in ways we've never anticipated. Braid, Castle Crashers, Galaga Legions, Bionic Commando Rearmed, Geometry Wars Retro Evolved 2. A seemingly innocuous selection of games that today might elicit no reaction whatsoever. However, they are harbingers of modern gaming, because they represent the beginning of the summer of Xbox Live Arcade. If you've never heard of the Xbox Live Summer of Arcade, you're not alone. Even some Xbox 360 fans might never have heard of it, and yet it represents a drastic shift in how gaming worked. These are 5 indie titles. Some of them are freshman entries from unproven developers, and yet they were given front-page exposure, press, and the backing of a major platform for an entire week on Xbox. See, for a while, Xbox was the only place to find truly indie games. Steam was still highly curated, having less than 200 titles available, and most of those were AA or AAA titles that had a proven marketplace. Steam was still a few years away from completely dominating the market. People were still considering whether it was worth it to upgrade from an iPhone to the 3G, and the economy was imploding at a rate that hadn't been seen since the 1930s. Into this troubled economy, Microsoft released their Summer Arcade with this basic premise. Buy an indie game, and you could win 100,000 Microsoft points, or $1,250, a 12-month Xbox Live Gold subscription, and an Xbox 360 Elite console. Essentially, spend $10 and you're entered to win $2,000. Additionally, Microsoft would release only one game per week for 5 weeks, and that game would be on sale for 30 or 50% off its normal price. This was perhaps surprisingly the first time a digital games platform had done a sale like this. Steam had never yet done a Steam sale. Origin didn't exist, Humble Bundle was 2 years out, PlayStation Plus didn't exist yet. There really wasn't anything quite like Xbox Live Arcade. And it was a massive success. Microsoft saw a 58% increase in people buying games digitally over the month it was live, and revenue was up 67%. These are not small numbers for a massive company like Microsoft. It was the most successful month on record for Xbox, a huge win for the concept of a curated indie market. That month also saw the first time that an Xbox Live Arcade game, that is to say an indie game, became one of the top 3 most viewed pages on Xbox.com. Castle Crashers took over the #1 spot for games being played, and Braid became the highest rated game of all time on Xbox Live Arcade. Over the years, the Summer of Arcade would continue on an annual basis with releases of games like Trials HD, Splosion Man, Shadow Complex, Limbo, Monday Night Combat, Bastion, From Dust, Dust and Elysian Tale, Brothers, A Tale of Two Sons, and more. High-quality titles that have helped shape entire genres of gameplay and created massive new companies from small developers. Companies like Red Lynx, Supergiant Games, Tequila Works, and Iron Galaxy Studios. The rewards would change too, whether it be getting a free $10 balance added to your account if you bought all the games available that year, or getting a $10 balance added to your account if you spent $30. It was an incredibly good deal. You could buy $30 worth of discounted, super high quality indie gems, and Microsoft would further discount your purchase with a balance of another 33%. That's unheard of. The closest thing to that today would be the Epic Games Store's first sale, where they gave $10 off any game over $15, which, like it or not, is a pretty good deal. Further, the Xbox Live Indie Game section was one of the few places you could upload a game that you made and sell it for actual money. I still to this day remember picking up the Impossible game for $1. These community games were introduced immediately after the first summer of Xbox Live Arcade, and they helped cement the indie scene that was suddenly showing up. It shouldn't surprise anyone that part of Steam's sales pitch as it approached other developers was, well, Bill Gates thinks indie games are a big deal. The following year, Steam would have its first Steam sale. Certainly, though, sales are one thing, and it's easy to say, well, Xbox was the first, so of course they get some credit. But it wasn't just that they were the first to have a sale. Macy's might have been the first major American company to have a sale too, but it's such an unimportant piece of history that no one even bothered to write it down. Certainly as well, it was incredibly profitable both for Microsoft and the indie developers who were highlighted, but they were highlighted. They were chosen and selected by a major player in the industry. So is it really surprising that they would do well? If a major channel were to suddenly link this very video to their pre-established fan base, I'm sure this video would do very well too. But is that the credit of the work or the credit of the patron? For a lot of modern gamers, digital is just how it is. In 2008, however, while the industry was seeing over $11 billion in software revenue, over 80% of that was physical product being sold in a store. That quarter in 2008, Amazon didn't even sell $5 billion total. It was a physical world for everyone and for gamers. The Summer of Arcade proved that digital is okay. Not just to a developer or to a publisher, but to the consumer. There were 25 million Xboxes in the world, and suddenly those gamers knew about digital downloads. Not just for horse armor, but for entire games. And they could be drastically cheaper. And you could get them in your house right away, faster than driving to the store. This was a revolution for consumers. Within 18 months of the first sale and the increasingly successful indie games section on Xbox, we started to see developers taking initiatives to drive more sales in a way that wasn't truly replicated elsewhere, with the indie game uprisings. These were events designed to drive attention to a select group of indie games and ultimately see higher sales, and they were successful. Additionally, with the rise of actually successful indie developers, we started to see AA and AAA designers, coders, and artists leaving their AA and AAA companies and forming indie software houses. Seeing huge success stories like Fez, Super Meat Boy, Braid, and Limbo drove these individual developers to realize that they too could be successful indies. It wasn't impossible to sell your game anymore. Xbox Live Arcade could make you a millionaire. At the same time, Steam was showing up in a major way, so it felt safe to create your own indie game. For the first time, it felt to these developers like they could actually make it. This is no small change to the industry. Mid-sized developers were losing the ability to compete. They couldn't hold on to their star talent. They had just enough red tape that they couldn't produce titles quickly and be agile, and they couldn't produce enough titles to compete with the flood of content being created. Worse still, AAA developers were buckling down on the Hollywood aspect of game creation. Instead of spending $10 million, they were spending tens of millions of dollars on a single game. Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 came out in 2009, just over a year after the first Summer of Arcade, and it had a budget of around $200 million. The AA game would disappear rapidly, and it wouldn't see any sort of resurgence until Ninja Theory's Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice in 2017, or the rise of Devolver Digital and their stable of content. The summer of Xbox Live Arcade helped drive the AA development system directly into a death spiral, and it also led to the creation of AAA development houses. The idea that an indie team can produce nearly AAA content with the right kind of support and financial backing up front, leading to games like Frost Keeps Rend, or small publishers like Chucklefish with games like Stardew Valley, Starbound, and Risk of Rain. It pioneered the concept of a digital storefront mega sale and curated content on a level that we've never seen since. Imagine if Steam or Epic were to focus on one game for an entire week, putting it on sale and promising that if you bought this one and a few others, they'd give you money back. It's unfathomably powerful and therefore completely not shocking that these games all sold hundreds of thousands or millions of copies over their lifespan. It only lasted for a few short years, and many gamers don't even remember it, but the Summer of Arcade was easily one of the most influential decisions that Microsoft has made in the gaming space. They continue to make incredibly bold movements with Xbox. The Xbox PC Game Pass is an incredible value and unbelievably fair to gamers. The fact that you can upgrade your Xbox Live Gold to Game Pass for $1 and keep every single month you've stocked up, well, that's just insanity. Microsoft is coming to change the way gaming is done again, and it's awesomely fascinating to watch. With Xbox Live already available on the Nintendo Switch, it's not hard to imagine other Xbox games, or even the Game Pass itself, available on Switch. That, of course, would mean you could play Microsoft games on PC, Xbox, or Switch, and probably mobile eventually too. I wouldn't be surprised if they put themselves on the Google Stadia and just completely owned the subscription gaming market. They are doing incredible things since the Xbox division was removed from underneath Windows, and it's worth watching as they reveal where they are attempting to lead the gaming industry. There's no doubt at this point that where Microsoft goes, gaming will likely follow. But whether it's as huge as the effect of the Summer Arcade is yet to be seen. If you've enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing and sharing the video with others. As a small creator, you are the only ones who can help others see our content. If you want to watch more of that content, you can click on one in the corner right now. And as always, we'll see you on the next one.